Welcome to Champions of the Lost Causes. I'm your host, Marvin Stockwell, and today I'm with Kim Yim, president of the Pleasant Village Community Gardens here in East Harlem. Kim, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll apologize to our listeners. Here at the outset, we're in kind of a noisy neighborhood here, but we're in this incredible community gardens, and we thought, what better setting than the place where you're doing the work. I'll also want to give a shout out to my friends at IOBI. I was telling Kim before we started rolling that IOBI is the whole reason I knew about this project. I myself am an IOBI project leader, past and present. This road trip is also an IOBI project. But I became aware of your efforts here because I reached out to IOBI and I said, give me a list of some people in the New York area that are really doing incredible work. And they were great to give me a list, and here we are.
That's very nice to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is also part of the second annual Champions of the Lost Causes podcast summer road trip. Last year we went out to the West Coast, and this year we're here on the East Coast, and we couldn't be happier to be here with you this morning, Kim.
Thank you for having me. It's a very, very hot day, but I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
We're from Memphis, so this isn't even hot really, but
yeah.
it's a little warm.
Yeah.
So Kim, here at the outset, if you could you back up and just kind of tell us the brief history of the gardens we're sitting in and how you came to be president?
Yeah, so this garden is reaching its 50th anniversary next year, so that's a very exciting thing for us.
Yeah.
We actually started, well, not me personally, but this garden was started even prior to like city agency building Green Thumb, and so it started with just a local neighbor who wanted to beautify her neighborhood, and so she threw a whole bunch of seed bombs, which is just like mud made into, with a whole bunch of flower seeds, and that's how this garden was created. It was a collection of maybe 6 or 7 buildings, I believe, and eventually later on there was a couple other lots that were added to the garden, so it's a fairly large garden as well. That happened in the 1970s, where the exact date kind of unknown, but it's around like 1974, 1975.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
So I became part of this garden around 2019, at the end of 2019, and I was a gardener on top of my roof at first, and that eventually had to be taken down because of building regulations and whatnot. So I needed a new place to garden, so I came here through a neighbor that I lived with in the building, and she brought me here and said I should join. So I came down and met with the president at the time, who I actually already knew. So that kind of worked out.
Cool.
Yeah, easily. And so then the pandemic kind of came down on us, and so the current president at the time, she was spending a lot of time outside of the city, away. And I just became more active here daily and taking care of the oversight of everything, and eventually became president. And
okay.
Yeah, since then I've been president. So
from a seed bomb origin in sometime in the 70s, around 74, when I was a very small child. So how did those early folks get this land? Did they just kind of was it somewhat unclaimed?
Right. So back in the 70s, East Harlem was definitely not a safe neighborhood to be in. So I definitely think, they just kind of gained access illegally, squatted. But, when you're beautifying a really torn down neighborhood, I don't think anyone's really going to complain about it. So eventually they ended up getting rights to the land. And so this area is protected now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I bet that wasn't easy. That probably took years to get.
Right. No, it didn't happen until 1997, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
So
20 plus years.
Yeah.
This underscores a kind of common theme with people championing causes of any type, and that is they're in it for the long haul.
Right. It's definitely something that you invest a lot of time in. Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to do something. That's. I mean, we can sit here and enjoy it and look at it and be like, "Oh, wow, this is awesome," but this represents hundreds, probably thousands of people's very hard work
Yeah.
over the decades.
Yeah, the hard part is that it can be taken away so quickly too. You work so hard to build it, but we lost a portion of our land about 2 years ago, and it's just so frustrating to see it just like disappear like so quickly.
Do you think that's because the very activity of you making the land more valuable or more inviting is?
I'm sure it has to play with a lot of things, but that has to be a part for sure.
Yeah. Cormac, how's that drilling in the background sounding? So just take a break?
I could tell them to wait on the drilling. It's actually our project.
Oh, is it? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm the president.
He's the president. Yeah, fantastic. As a PR pro with my own publicity practice, I'm proud to be partnering with my friends at Muckrack, an all-in-one platform that helps me build rapport with journalists and land timely media coverage. Not only does Muckrack give me the tools I need, they actively work with PR pros and journalists to build community in ways that add value to our work. If you want more information about Muckrack, visit muckrack.com. So before the break, we were talking about how it's the very activity often that people, wherever pre-vitalizing or pop-up events of any type, you are demonstrating through this garden that this is a wonderful place to live. People are realizing it's a wonderful place to live. Before we talk about maybe the potential downside and with land being claimed, what type of feeling does it give you to know that this project that you work on is such a place of comfort and community building for so many?
It is. It's like I come here every day, and most of the people that are a part of this garden, they do come here every day, and so we have cookouts and we have like gatherings on the weekends, and there's so many things that we do here as a community, and it's just nice to know the people that you're living next to,
right.
So it's a good feeling, definitely.
Does that I would imagine that that kind of fosters a sense of community and kind of interconnectedness.
Yeah, definitely. And what I find to be amazing is that it's a group of very diverse people. Like, we're all walks of life here, and I think that's one of the greatest things about New York City, and something that should be cherished more in New York City. So, yeah.
Why do you think that the kind of common denominator of gardening, growing crops, is such a great backcloth for bringing people together that wouldn't normally maybe get along, or think they'd get along?
Yeah, it's a common ground because we all need to eat, So I think like growing a crop, it's a lot of times things don't work out. It's not the easiest thing to do, and carrots aren't always going to come out beautiful and edible.
Sure.
So it is just about the labor of love, and it's about connecting with other people and learning new ways to grow better. And everyone has like their helpful tips and whatnot, so it's like great talking to others about things like that.
What does it do for you personally? Like, how does it make you feel to go and not only participate in the basic activities but to lead? How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel proud. I mean, we just won a design award this past year, and to know that I've led it to another level. Mm-hmm. It makes me really happy. I'm really excited. Yeah. It's having like a vision and seeing it, come to life. It's a good feeling. What
are some of the major things that you've implemented in the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years as president?
So, the composting program.
Right, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth here in a second.
I think a bird just pooped on me.
Oh, no.
So there's our walkway. It's a permeable walkway, and it absorbs a lot of rainwater, which we're in a flood zone, and so that helps to prevent and mitigate any of the flooding issues that we used to have in the garden. We've also installed a rain garden, which is just like a large area of land here that we added pollinator plants to, and plants that are good in wet soil. Where we redid like our chicken run, which is nice. So we've expanded our chicken program, which we sell eggs as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then and consolidating, because we were a lot bigger land-wise, and so consolidating it and making all of what we did before work on our smaller land was a big project. Yeah, we're still working on it.
How long ago was that land seized?
It's been 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is our third year that they haven't, and it's still sitting there. It's unfortunate.
Oh, so they seized it and they're just letting it sit there?
Yeah, it was supposed to
terrible.
go for affordable housing, but for some reason, like we were saying earlier, the city takes forever to get things done. Yeah, it's just unfortunate because it's...
Could have let you garden for that 3 years.
Yeah, there's that, but it's also now caused issues with, like, the overgrowth that's there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like there were raccoons last year, and they ate some of our chickens. Like,
oh, gosh.
Yeah, so there's been issues since then.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the composting program. So the composting, was that an add-on that you thought of?
No, not at all. And I don't want to take credit for that part. It was already existing. What I did bring on was the expansion of it. So around the time that I became president, we had a new member join the garden, and her name is Sako, and she was a master composter. So it just naturally felt normal for her to lead the group in composting, sure. Right? And then with her, she then partnered with, his name is Nando Rodriguez, and he is the inventor of the hotbox system, which is our system that we use to compost. And it helps create compost without the additional work of having to turn. Yeah, so it cuts out a lot of the grueling work, even though there's still a lot of grueling work that goes into it.
Sure.
Yeah, it cuts out...
I've tried composting at home. It's hard. It's hard.
It's discouraging. It's not sexy in any way, definitely.
No.
Yeah, so Sako and Nando and all these, people, they brought it together. Mm-hmm. So I really, I don't lead the group in that sense for composting, but I do facilitate things to happen for everybody.
Gotcha.
So that they have what they need to make it happen. So
sure.
Yeah.
How does the garden support itself? Is it simply all volunteer led, or are you a nonprofit, or how does that work?
So we are a nonprofit, but we do reach out to outside organizations. We're sponsored by Green Thumb, which is a division of the Parks Department.
Okay, perfect.
So we do get great support from them. Previously, there was an organization called Lower East Side Ecology Center, and we got to a certain point where we were getting so much influx of food scraps that we needed to outsource someone to take some of our extra load. So they were partnered with us and worked with us closely with making sure that we had everything we needed to collect and process. But
you mean the food that is produced?
The food scraps.
So you all were producing so much.
Yeah, because we collect from the neighborhood. Like people from the neighborhood all around, they come and bring their food scraps here to compost.
Oh, food scraps.
Yeah,
okay, right.
To compost. So those bins are always collecting food scraps all the time. So that needs to be processed. So when we can't take that on, we would send it out to Lower East Side Ecology because they have a bigger facility. But now that's shut down. So there were budget cuts in the city recently.
Oh, so there's a official city composting, but they're overwhelmed. That's the opportunity.
Right. So the city had some major budget cuts this year, and the composting program throughout the city was cut. So these local community gardens are kind of like the only place you can compost your food scraps. And so you can imagine like everyone else that used to be able to like drop it off at like a local box or the one that's in their building, that they're now all bringing it here. So
wow.
It brought a lot of extra compost here.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems obvious, but let me not assume here.
Yeah.
What would happen with all these food scraps if you weren't composting them?
Right, so it goes into landfill, right? Or it ends up on the streets for rodents and birds and whatnot. There's many, who knows? And it's a scary thought, but we try to do our part here.
Right. Yeah. What's interesting is I'm realizing that in Memphis, where we're from, yes, we have a composting thing in our backyard, but we weren't really all that good at it.
Right.
And I just think to myself, a city like Memphis is more spread out. and I'm sure there are people who compost in Memphis, but like in New York City, you all have to be much more coordinated about it.
Yeah.
Or it's more of a necessity.
Yeah,
really.
I feel like there was a lot of funding that was put into these programs. I mean, even our program, it essentially most likely started from funding that the city was offering, right?
To solve a problem.
Right, to solve a problem. But the follow through and a new office, it changes everything. And so I don't think it's so much of a concern right now for the current administration here. So
I see.
That's what's frustrating.
Yeah. Oftentimes, one mayoral administration,
Right.
it's a priority. Like in Memphis, we had a mayor that was all about building bike lanes.
Right.
And I'm a bike commuter myself, so I was happy to see it, right?
Right.
The next mayor didn't so much say tear out all the bike lanes, but he didn't really care about it.
Right.
Right. So it just like the pace at which new bike lanes were built really slowed to a crawl.
Right.
They weren't well kept up.
Right.
So
So that's really similar to what's going on here with composting.
yeah. So, but what I love here is that like there are always limitations as to what government can do.
Right.
And you all aren't just merely sitting here and saying like, this is terrible.
Right.
You're doing something about it.
Right. So I guess that's where IOB comes in, right?
Uh-huh.
It's a great platform for that. So
It really is, yeah.
We raised our funds for our first hot box, which it is a pretty pricey price for setting up a hot box.
Mm-hmm.
So we reached out to IOBY again to get more funding for the third recent build that we just did. So we now have 3 hot boxes.
3 hot boxes.
Yeah.
Let's back up a step and
Yeah.
if you could tell me what a hot box is and how many you have and how much that allows you to process.
Okay. So we have 3 hot boxes. They essentially, it's made out of plastic lumber. So there's gonna be a lot of street cleaning coming. We'll take a pause.
We'll take a pause here for this. What is this, street sweeping?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not gonna go away for a while. So. So that's fun. You guys get to travel everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, last summer. Oh, that wasn't too bad. They're already pretty much
Yeah, no,
gone.
they'll come back.
Oh, they'll come back and do the other side.
Yeah. It's a dead end on this street.
Oh, gotcha. So they'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So the hot box.
yeah, tell us about the hot box.
So it's I believe it measures as 1 cubic yard, which is the measurement of how much it takes to heat up enough mass to heat up to decompose.
I see.
So it's also has PVC pipes that run through it. So kind of like a convection, like when heat rises, it then sucks in cool air through the pipes, and the pipes are perforated, so it's spreading air throughout the compost, which eliminates the need for turning it and flipping it and bringing in that air that you need when you are composting. And so you can just throw everything in there and let it sit for 2 months, and it turns into compost all by itself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite fabulous.
Does this person have a patent on
Yeah,
this?
he does. He does have a patent.
Wow.
Yeah.
A
very-
composting thing where I don't have to turn the thing?
I know, and you
I
know,
want one.
it still, requires like chopping up the food scraps or whatever you're putting in there, but it's an amazing, helpful thing. But the problems that come in are just that when it's full, you have to wait 2 months. So the problem is, if we're still getting more food scraps, we need.
Oh,
another.
gotcha.
Yeah, there's an issue there.
Yeah. We'll wait while
Yeah, no
this
problem.
thing passes. No, but so at the outset of the episode, we warned people that it was going to be a little bit noisy, but we weren't anticipating a street cleaner. But that's okay. That's okay. So. Is who designed this hot box? Tell me the
His
person.
name is Nando Rodriguez.
Nando Rodriguez.
He's a local East Harlem. I don't know East Harlem, but Harlem resident. Yeah.
And is he bringing this thing to market? Is he selling them? Or?
I think as of now, he's just been working with community gardens and finding more places that he can install them. But you know, he does need to come out and build it for you, and he, you know, just to make sure that it's done properly.
Wow.
And make sure that you're set up and everyone's trained properly to use it. So yeah.
So I guess he's kind of in the beta testing phase.
Yeah, he is, definitely.
Yeah.
But, you know, every year, I just talked to him the other day, like every year it seems that he's putting more and more in, so it's exciting to see.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Innovating right here in Harlem.
Very, very intelligent guy.
Yeah. So if the garden began in the 70s as a way to kind of beautify and the community and also draw people together, and that part of the mission remains in place. Can you talk a little bit about how the garden kind of grew over time? How long did it take you all to amass the size? I know it's been reduced now, but can you talk a little bit about how it grew over time?
Well, so like I've seen just from records and from seeing pictures and whatnot, and stories from others, you know, it's seen different shifts of how it used to run and how it's been managed. I just know for now, like it's a very like tight group of people that manage most of the garden space together. Yeah, it's. I think because we've lost land to grow more food, which is what we used to do on the land that we lost. I've tried to focus more on steering everyone towards like environmental purposes and causes, so like the rain garden or like the permeable walkway, things like this that help environmentally, like the group. So yeah.
So talk a little bit about those innovations. You mentioned the rain garden. Tell me about that.
So it's a circular garden. It's about 30 feet in circumference, in diameter.
Yeah.
And it's gravel lined. So there's like a thick layer of gravel, and we excavated some of this and then put gravel, and then within that you can walk around the circle, but in the middle of it is just a whole field of like pollinator plants and things like bee balm and lemongrass and, you know, all sorts of different stuff. Yeah.
Is it certain things grow better together, and has there been some intentionality as to how you pair the crops and flowers and stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. Just I do a lot of, you know, like everyone else, I do a lot of researching online. So, you know, things that caught my eye, just pairing them together, and then half of that, you know, is coupled with whatever's available and what we can get our hands on. Yeah. But we've been really fortunate with donations, and we used to have a professional landscaper that was a member, and when they would do their jobs, they would have to take out a lot of things because people were always like switching out plants, but the plants would still be viable, so he would bring them here. So we've you know, received a collection of like great plants to put in the garden. So it's a great space.
A buddy of mine, he used to go and rescue the cast-off plants at, like, you know, your larger stores, the ones that were put out by the dumpster.
Yeah, it's a good way.
Yeah. Why not? Why let them go to waste?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about the garden, how it's. How many? I'm curious. How many? Is this membership based? Do people join the garden?
That's correct.
As a member?
So we are membership based. We have about 50 members this year, which is down a little bit. There used to be, I think, when I first started, it was around 70. I will say though that I'm really proud of the fact that we're really, really diverse. Like there's such an equal balance of every like race and culture. So it's a exciting group of people, definitely.
Yeah. And do people pay membership fees?
Yeah, so anybody can come into the garden if it's open, if we're here, and we're open on Saturdays and Sundays. But the fee for membership, if you want like your own plot, is $10 a year. It's very nominal.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's very
$10 a year. That's yeah. So talk to me a little bit more about maybe some specific people that jump to mind that are real leaders in the garden. You mentioned diversity, and I think just as a society, I think we really truly have moved to embrace the mantra that there is strength in our diversity. I mean, and I've seen that in my own team championing the cause of the Coliseum back in Memphis. I just think people have different strengths, different backgrounds, different insights.
Definitely.
And they bring all that to the table. Can you talk a little bit about how that manifests itself here at the Garden?
Yeah. So me personally, I'm Korean. The compost leader, she's Japanese, and I know for us too, our commonality is probably that we're Asian. So bringing that, our Asian culture kind of. There's a commonality in like being a part of nature, and composting kind of just seemed natural for us to do. And then we have others that are of Puerto Rican descent, which is very common in New York, and they're also very part of the land and get your hands dirty and let's get to work. And so there's this commonality between a lot of different cultures that I find them to be very I don't know how to explain that, but better. But
they find a home here. And
for sure.
That is incredible. So how many people are here like on a daily, out of their 50 or so members, how many people are here daily tending to their crops and stuff?
We have groups, so there's probably about 20 people that we're here every day. And then there's a group that's maybe like a 4 or 5 times a week, and then there's some that just come a couple of times a week just to water their plots, and then they're done.
I gotcha.
So everyone participates as much as they can.
Sure.
And I think that's something that I've like grown to understand, is that people, only can share what they can share, and everyone's just doing the best they can. So
people have busy lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole point of this place is to be a place to like, relax and kind of, get away from all of that. So,
sure.
If it means that they only have a certain amount of time, then that's fine.
If anything, I've had the benefit of being able to be in New York a good dozen times over my life. But this is Cormac's first time to New York, and I remember the first few times I went to New York. New York was a little bit overwhelming to me. It took me being in New York several times before I got a comfort level with it. And I think the kind of caricature of New York is that everything's 100% hustle and bustle, the mean streets of New York City, etc.
Right.
And I just feel like this is such a great oasis because, of course, the caricature is not true.
Right.
And this is a great proof of that.
Right.
That even in such a city that's as diverse and thriving, and yes, cram-packed with humanity and industry and activity, there still are these places of refuge. Right? I mean, like as we were walking up here, and I'm looking at my phone on the map, and I'm like, where's the room for the garden? And then boom, here it is.
Right.
This beautiful garden.
I love that about New York. You could turn the corner and it's like you have no idea what you can expect. It's exciting. Yeah, but there's definitely people that, we live here too. I think there are busy parts of New York City and that are true to that caricature.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, there are neighborhoods as well. So we're one of the neighborhoods. So it's nice.
It strikes me as that a garden and just the simple discipline of waiting on nature to do what it does has a kind of like slow your roll kind of like effect. It's like we as human beings can go so fast and with the speed of information and technology, but I think that the simplicity of a garden is such that it slows you down and realizes there are ancient processes that take time. I don't know, I find that encouraging and kind of healing to me.
It is very. I mean, if you think about it, plants are a lot smarter than us. They've learned to like reproduce by themselves. They've learned to like, they don't even need a sexual partner sometimes. Like there's just so many things like that are very intelligent about plants, and they don't even have a brain. So it's kind of like mind-boggling to think about.
It is mind-boggling. Can you talk a little bit about so people produce crops here?
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the health side of this equation. This is not only a place of solace, it's a place of work, and it is a place that produces. I'm just curious, what do you grow here?
So in my personal own plot, I have like a kiwi plant. I have blueberry bushes.
Oh, okay.
But I do tomatoes, cucumbers right now, and lots of herbs. I also have asparagus planted. So I've tried to plant things that like come back by themselves, really, to be honest. So like the blueberry, the kiwi, and all that stuff. They just come back by themselves. So I know that they're always there growing. And so if I don't have enough time to get to those things,
oh, gotcha.
I know that they're still there. And they give me a reward every year. So
sure. Well, you got to spend a lot of bandwidth being president.
yeah, it's overwhelming sometimes. But yeah.
So you maybe some crops that are a little easier to manage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
What about other people? What else grows in this garden?
Like this year we did a lot of like leafy greens in our greenhouse, and then like radishes as well, beets, stuff like that. But everyone tends to like steer towards like the tomatoes and the eggplants and all the fun stuff. And we have great success here. It's like we don't get like this huge, crop load of like tomatoes, but it's really like the labor of love and, just seeing it through to provision. It's like really great to see,
Do you all ever come together as a membership group for like to eat a meal that's part of the produce? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely. That happens almost like every other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not a special occasion.
No.
That's every other day.
We have a grill. We have a couple of grills here, and the grills are always sparked up. And then someone will bring a salad, and the next person brings bread. There's so many things that we do here.
That's wonderful.
And culturally, like it's great because there's all these different cuisines all the time. So yeah,
gosh,
it's cool.
Yeah, that is one of the great blessings of being in New York City. So there's such a diversity of food, just at your fingertips.
Yeah.
But from a fresh produce from the ground perspective, all the more wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
That's incredible. As you look out into the future, what do you think the future of the garden looks like in let's say the next 1 to 2 years, and maybe we'll take a longer look after that.
Like
what do you want to accomplish as president next?
Yeah, like I have to say I've remodeled or reconstructed almost every inch of this garden since I've been here, and we're on our last stretch right now. There was an area of the garden that was divided, and that division created somewhat of a junkyard, and so it's taken about 4 years to clear out that junkyard. And we are in the last stages of it. I don't know if you heard the hammering earlier, but that's concrete coming undone so that, now we can allow proper drainage and have, gravel brought in and spread and laid down so that rats won't get under the structures that we are building. And
good.
Yeah.
More of that permeable walkway?
Exactly. Okay. We're spreading it across the ground.
Super.
So where it used to flood and where rats were underneath the structures, they're no longer. Yeah.
Gotcha. Talk to me a little bit more about that permeable walkway. Is that a fairly easy? Do you just purchase that, or do you have to construct it? Or
so the materials we actually raised on IOBY as well.
Okay.
The funds for it, at least. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then a lot of the materials were also delivered through Green Thumb, but it's basically you excavate about 4 to 6 inches below where you need to go, and then you put in 2 inches layer of crushed stone, which is basically like broken up concrete, I think, but a fancy word for it is crushed stone. And then there's a grid pattern. It's like plastic grid, and it's 2 inches like deep as well, and it's called a diamond grid. And then you put the diamond grids together, and it basically makes like a floor.
Oh wow.
And then the diamond grid is filled with smaller crushed stone, like really small, and that's called stone dust. And so all of that together is 4 to 6 inches of drainage, and so when it rains, water seeps right through. It's all permeable.
I see.
And it's it's also ADA compliant. So, that was another added plus.
Now, why does it help water drain better?
Just because water goes through porous. It's porous, and it's all gravel. So before it was all like compacted soil and dirt. So
I see.
Yeah, taking all that out kind of creates
How
more
cool.
and then it can slowly dissipate instead of like flooding. Yeah.
We're almost far enough on the other side of the pandemic to where a pandemic question is starting to feel a little bit irrelevant or dated, but I do think the process of coming back together as people is still relevant and not too much in the distant past. Can you talk a little bit about that period of time where people didn't feel comfortable? We all went through it. Didn't feel comfortable being with each other without masks, or maybe at all at the outset, and talk about how the social cohesion of being together that this garden affords started to kind of like, as people came back to that, did you notice people had a new appreciation for it?
Yeah, definitely. So when the pandemic started, we had this unique space, right, where the city allowed us to still operate. We didn't need to open to the public, so we were allowed to come here. And each garden had their own way. Like, you had to decide as your own, each garden had to decide how they wanted to operate within letting people in.
I see.
So our garden specifically, we only let in members. If you are a member, you're allowed to come in here, but you'd have to wear a mask. So originally that's like how it started. So most of us were still coming here every day. And so it was great to have the outlet to be able to go outside when others, when you look at it, others didn't, you know. And so and it brought in a lot of community work. That's when we built we expanded our growing capacity that year. So we, a lot changed as far as growth goes, and it was kind of like not what you would expect, when you're thinking about a pandemic being shut down. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, being outdoors was my salvation. For me, that was bike rides down the Shelby Farms Green Line. Several Rails to Trails projects in Memphis, and I was all of a sudden working from home, so I could work from the bike trail. That was kind of my salvation. So the fact that people had this garden to come through, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was.
Let's look a little bit farther out and imagine, what role do you see this garden playing in the East Harlem future of, say, 5, 10, 15, or even 20 years from now?
So I think that the one thing about this garden is it's always kind of stayed true to being the hub of this area. Everyone knows each other in this area. If someone's new to the area and they walk on the block, we all notice that that person's not from here. So I think that it'll always remain a hub, in that sense, where there's information passed, there's stories shared, music is played all the time. So it's
cool.
It's just, I think it'll always stay true to that. I hope it does, at least, and I've always kept that in mind, is that, like I said before, with the Puerto Rican heritage being so prominent in this area, that I hope that stays. I hope that that they're allowed to continue as well. So the last portion that we're reconstructing in the front is basically just an area for them to hang out and socialize and gather. So it's more of just a community space to use.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because you've mentioned a couple times, and just you can kind of just see the sheer volume of it. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of work. Kim, why do you do it? What keeps you going, and what's the kind of the satisfaction that you draw that makes it all worth it?
Yeah, I ask myself that a lot. That's a really good question. Originally, I started gardening because it was a necessity, just to grow food, right? And I was just in a time in my life where it was important. So from there, it just sparked the interest in wanting to grow things, and I've just been fascinated ever since. Basically, everything that I do here revolves around that concept of I'm just trying to grow something, So I guess it just makes it's worthwhile just because of that, just seeing something happen. You're planting a little tiny seed, and then it grows into something. That's an amazing feeling that I just, can't pay for that.
Yeah. So, but just like crops need to be cultivated and tilled and weeds being pulled out, if you look at this garden as a crop that you've tended, you've also used your abilities as a leader make some changes, to implement some things, and that hasn't been easy. What type of sense of satisfaction do you get from using your leadership skills to make this garden run better?
So.
And I know you don't do it alone.
I don't. I definitely don't do it alone.
But I mean, but leadership matters.
Yeah, leadership does matter. And I think that you need a strong vision, and you definitely need the characters underneath, to play their part as well. It is very frustrating sometimes, and overwhelming. But yeah. Can you repeat your question again?
No, I'm trying to get at the motivation, because I feel like people who champion causes, any cause, this was the central question I asked myself at the outset.
Yeah.
Why do we do it?
I mean, if let's say, so I just feel like if I felt the responsibility of like being able to like be this middle ground between like what should be and what is more likely to happen, like as far as like gentrification of an area, So when I think about it, like if I didn't play the role that I played, like what would have happened? This garden would have been probably taken over, or there were issues here within the garden that needed to be taken care of, and had they not been, like the privileges of using this garden probably would have been taken away in my mind. And so therefore I felt like I created this like happy like medium between like what people actually need and then what the city's actually going to force on us. So I've just been trying to preserve like what is right for everyone here.
Right.
That's kind of like really what I want.
And it's an oversimplification to say, well, why do that? Because it's the right thing to do. But how would you put that? Or like what's you're doing that because at the root cause you care about people.
Well, I do, and I also care about New York City in that way. And I think about what brought me to New York City, and a lot of those things have been taken away. And so I think it's preserving that little bit of like New York City, like that excitement of having all these cultures in one place and everyone getting along, So I'm trying, I think that drives me a lot as well.
That takes work, doesn't it? To get
definitely.
People of disparate backgrounds together.
Yeah.
But when you see it happen, it's incredible.
It's a great feeling, definitely.
Yeah. What's the next step for composting?
For composting, so we just raised funds for a new box.
Through IOBI?
Through IOBI,
yeah.
Yep, correct. And basically, the budget cuts happened this year, this previous year, and so we lost our partnership with Lower East Side Ecology, and so we don't have anyone picking up our extra food scraps, right? So it just became so overwhelming again, and when the bins are filled, we can't take in anymore. But that needs to be processed, otherwise it's sitting there rotting or fermenting. So we had to get another box. So we're hoping that the box will offer us that time to, by when one cycle is finished, we'll have another bin to be able to fill in. So we're hoping that the 3 system will work for us to maintain it sustainably.
And like with everything else, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next thing.
Yeah.
And a new challenge will arise.
Yeah. I think we've also learned, like, having other forms of composting, which may not just be this one type. We also do like vermicomposting. We have the chickens that we feed a lot of the excess edible food waste that we feel like they can eat, We also have like a windrow compost, which is just like a pile.
Oh, okay.
So we separate just like, if it's within the garden, like waste from the garden, like our cuttings and stuff like that, grass cuttings or whatever, we'll collect that and put that in a separate pile. And so just creating these other alternative sources to compost throughout the garden has helped alleviate some of that pressure as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is incredible, and this has been a great stop along the podcast road trip, and I really appreciate you taking the time. What, in closing here, is there anything, Kim, that I might not have known to ask that you want to speak to?
Well, composting is just a really great topic to talk about. It's something that I feel like, it is kind of like a no-brainer. Like, we should be doing this, but it is a really hard thing for just an average person to do. And when we're dealing with things like climate change, I know that a lot of people worry about like what part they're really playing in it, and then there's also the issue of like, what can I do about it? And there are not really too many like outlets for you to like really feel like you're doing a big thing to change that. So I think having this conversation about composting is a huge thing, because it's something that we all need to discuss to talk about our waste management.
Right.
So.
Oh, you're right to flag the connection to the larger issue of global warming.
Yeah.
And this is a very concrete step that literally anybody can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any, like, I guess everybody's got Google. We can all go Google composting resources. But if all of a sudden someone's listening to this and says, gosh, they're right, I need to do more composting, what resources would you send them to?
So our New York City Parks Department, Green Thumb, they have a website as well. I'm sure Nando has one too as well. But I'd have to take a deeper look into that. I'm not really sure, but I would just definitely check the Parks Department.
Sure.
Yeah, our local.
And their New York Parks Department, or wherever you live, Parks Department. How can people learn more about your work?
They can go to our website. They can also email pleasantvillagegardens@gmail.com. And our website is pleasantvillagecommunitygarden.com. Yeah.
Fantastic. Kim, thank you so much for being on the show today.
No
I really
problem.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.